First of all, it's a pleasure to be here to share with you information, thoughts, and ideas about what we're trying to do in the state of Qatar. We're trying really to focus on energy and water security research and address these as national grand challenges and pull all the entities in Qatar to do it. The approach is a fairly integrated approach, and I'll describe that in a few minutes. But I thought I'll initially give you an idea about what we're trying to do in the Qatar Foundation. So in the Qatar Foundation, our goal is to build a world-leading research and innovation ecosystem. The ecosystem consists of funding the research to entities that actually perform the research activities, to entities that take the research and translate it into innovations, intellectual property, spin-outs, and so on. The main goal here is to transform the economy of the state of Qatar from an economy that depends on hydrocarbons to one that actually will be a knowledge-based. Science and technology are core to that. You know, that's what fuels the engine. Clearly, to make something happen, you have to be focused. Diffused activities don't really provide a lot of results. So what we're doing is to create in clusters, that actually innovation clusters that would have the impact that we desire. And without partnerships and relations with other entities, there cannot be surface relations. They actually have to be truly strong, deep relations. You cannot address the nexus of scientific talents. So in Qatar, we're trying to build capacity, talent capacity. And to that end, trying to ensure we have universities, research, all coupled together, working together. So what we're focusing on are energy, water, food, environment, health, and cybersecurity. That's in the state of Qatar. But in the institute, the Qatar Environment and Energy Institute, mainly we're focusing on the energy and water. Qatar has a national vision for 2030 that actually sets the priorities for the research and innovation in the state of Qatar. So we took the Qatar National Vision and it translated it into a Qatar National Research Strategy. The National Research Strategy sets the priorities for the state of Qatar and then what approaches, what activities we need to carry over time to achieve the goals of the Qatar National Vision. The Qatar National Vision activities as a project was led by the Emir, the current Emir, Sheikh Tamim. So it has a lot of support, okay? A lot of support from the top. Commitment from the top leadership to research and development and innovation and the ecosystem is extremely important. Now to realize that, we actually divided things into pillars. So we have a human development pillar, a social development pillar, an economic development, and environmental development pillar. And there is certain activities that go with each one of these pillars. So for example, in the economic pillar, we are talking about building new techniques and methodology to leverage the current hydrocarbon resources to actually propel us to the next level. Though I'm not going to talk about it, but Qatar produces actually a lot of natural gas. And also our downstream, we have a lot of hydrogen. If you look at the national energy strategy for Japan, Japan is actually focusing on hydrogen for power generation, to increase the performance of combustion activities, but also for future fuel cell cars. I think Emilio talked about that. In Qatar, actually, we're working on that, and how do we actually produce hydrogen, but then how do we transport hydrogen in a liquid state, okay, from Qatar to Japan. So there's a lot of things we're trying to do that actually tie to the hydrocarbon, but with new approaches. But nonetheless, okay, our major focus is on the two grand challenges that I will speak about in a bit. One of the purposes of my talk is actually to introduce you to the Qatar Foundation. There is a lot of misconceptions about Qatar and the Qatar Foundation, and I'd like to kind of clarify some of these if I can. In Qatar, it's not just sponsoring things, you know, it's not, you know, a bunch of trees and money on the trees. Okay. So in the state of Qatar, we're trying to focus truly on building a knowledge-based economy. To do a knowledge-based economy, you have to have capacity, you have to have people, you have to have talent there. So the foundation has three pillars: education, science and research, and community development. Education, we have two major activities in education. Maybe you heard about the branch campuses of US and British schools in Qatar, like Texas A&M Qatar, Carnegie Mellon Qatar, Weill Cornell, etc. And also we have a university, a new university called Hamad bin Khalifa University. It's focused on offering only PhD degrees. That will be done in collaboration with the branch campuses, but also in collaboration with our research institutes. Why? Well, clearly, if you want to actually build a knowledge-based economy, you need to have, you know, top talents. And the top talents has to be a sustainable top talent. Sustainability does not come by importing talents. So, you know, the Arab world is actually quite large and broad. And so, you know, one of the ideas here is to attract Arab scientists, especially young scientists. Okay. And in the future, they can be part of the fabric of Qatar and the fabric of what we're trying to do in the state of Qatar. Science and research. So science and research is new to the Qatar Foundation. It's been ongoing for about 3 years. Now, the Emir, the previous Emir, Sheikh Hamad, committed 2.8% of the revenues of the state of Qatar to research. That is at levels of the United States and many of the European countries. Actually, you'll see we benchmark Qatar against Norway because of similarities in the makeup of the economy. 2.8% is actually quite a bit of resources. But to make the accomplishments we seek, we have to be very focused. In the community development, we actually have a very broad community development in the foundation, but one part I would like to highlight, which is we have an endowment fund in the Qatar Foundation. That endowment fund is used to build new companies and support new companies. I would like to give a couple of examples. One of them is the Qatar Solar Technologies. The Qatar Solar Technologies is a factory, if you wish, in partnership with Solar World, producing polycrystalline silicon in Qatar. The foundation invested in that $1.2 billion. So we're creating companies, okay, that actually, you know, you cannot have a sustainable economy, knowledge-based economy, without having the companies. Another entity in that space is called Green Gulf. Green Gulf is a small company. It's in collaboration with Shell, mainly to look after the development and deployment of solar systems. So there's a lot of diversities in there. There is actually much more diversity than I can today speak about. But the foundation was founded in 1995 by decree from His Highness Sheikh Hamad, and is chaired by Her Highness Sheikh Moza bint Nasser. And again, it's a public-private partnership, so it combines both government and private funding in it. The Qatar Foundation has, as I said, one of its major arms is the science and research. The science and research is in charge of moving the activity, the research activities, the technology innovation to the next level, to the needed level. So we have several entities within research. One of them is the Qatar National Research Fund. And I'd like to highlight the Qatar National Research Fund. It is similar to the National Science Foundation in the US, but smaller. So the Qatar National Research Fund is a funding agency that funds research. Funds research within the state of Qatar, but also outside the state of Qatar. Again, we talk about trying to build capacity in the Arab world and so on, and this is in part can actually do that. So professors in Morocco can team with people in the research institutes in Qatar or the universities in Qatar to write the proposals to QNRF, the Qatar National Research Fund. Actually, we just, on the 14th of the month, concluded what we call the letters of intent for NPRP7, the National Priority Research Projects, 8 actually, not 7, 8. So that's the 8th cycle that the fund already did. The fund is roughly about, I'm going to say 500 million Qatar riyals annually, and it's growing. It's projected to reach about a little over $1 billion Qatar riyals over the next few years by 2018. So it's a major resource for funding, but it's for funding to do top-notch research with top-notch people. It's peer-reviewed research. It goes out, there's 4 or 5 reviewers per each one of these things. Now, within the Qatar Foundation, we have our own research institutes, and the research institutes are the Qatar Biomedical Research Institute, the Qatar Environment and Energy Research Institute, and the Qatar Computing Research Institute, and we have something similar to NERSC in the US or leadership class computing called the Qatar National Computing Infrastructure for Research, which is a supercomputing center. So the fund, then our research institutes, then at the tail end, we have actually a trade-free zone, an incubator, a location for spin-out companies called the Qatar Science and Technology Park. And that's actually another major activity within the foundation. So as you see, we have a pipeline. We have a pipeline from funding research. So the Qatar National Research Fund funds entities within Qatar. Our institutes are funded directly by the foundation. And then we have the Qatar Science and Technology Park that can take innovations and so on to spin-outs, an incubator, and also we have an endowment fund that I mentioned earlier that takes things to a much higher level. Now, within the fund, the Qatar National Research Fund, I'd like to highlight a few things. Okay. We actually have currently awards for postdoctoral research awards, where we made, potential candidates with some of our scientists or professors at the universities. We also have a graduate research award program and a graduate program development grants and so on for actually students. Within the institutes, we also have a PhD program with Hamad bin Khalifa University, and we're trying to extend it to other universities in the region. So students can have actually an opportunity, to do top-notch work using top-notch facilities and so on. And clearly, you have to compensate the student, and we do. As I mentioned, R&D's vision is very ambitious, but we know it's very achievable. It's really the major force in scientific discovery and technology discovery, again, to translate knowledge into innovation and applications, and to impact the society in Qatar. So we're really interested in creating things that create jobs, high-paying jobs in the state of Qatar. We're not just interested in deploying 1 gigawatt of solar energy in Qatar. We do. That's one of our goals. Okay. But we're going to create an ecosystem, an industrial ecosystem, such that we can actually market these technologies elsewhere. That's actually a very major driver to what we're trying to do. Same thing with water desalination. We're trying to create an ecosystem. Again, when you look at it, we try to look at a pipeline. What you see down here is the pipeline from the activities at QNRF to advance the research and education by supporting originally competitive and selected research projects. We're very focused, it's still in the fund. Then we have the institutes, and we try to manage these institutes and to drive toward, technology, innovation, and so on. And we want to realize commercial innovations from our Qatar Science and Technology Park, and then improve our community through education and economical contributions. So that's really what we're trying to do in Qatar. So it's not just a rich country trying to fund activities. That's not the case. It's actually a much different experiment than what you see in other neighboring countries. It's a much more thoughtful experiment. Now in education, again, we want to realize the full potential of a human development. What we're trying to do is a model similar to the Max Planck Institute model, where students are granted degrees elsewhere, and they do their research activities for their PhDs with us at the institutes. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying again to break down silos, promote more interaction within Qatar, okay? But also we want to do this stuff with outside Qatar. If you actually have the chance to come to Doha, it's actually a very vibrant city. People are free. Everybody can drive, males, females. It's an open society. In Qatar, in Doha, we have Education City. So Education City sits on one side, the bottom side, and we have the branch campuses of various universities, as you can see on the chart. On the top part, we have the campus for our R&D, and also we have the Qatar Science and Technology Park. So you can see now in this space we have the educational institutes, we have R&D, we have a trade-free zone, an incubator, etc. So the slides that I showed you earlier are translated on the ground with real things. This is real. So I mentioned earlier we tried to benchmark. Okay, so Qatar 2 years ago had a GDP, gross domestic product of $173 billion. It projected actually by 2022 to be close to $350 billion. So when you look at the size of economies, you can actually directly correlate the size of economies to the number of PhDs or FTEs that do in research. So you look at it here, like the United States with 1,400,000 something research FTEs. If you look at Poland, you see the numbers. Look at Norway, you see the numbers. Now in Qatar, for us to be really benchmarking against these other entities or other countries, we need to have between 10,000 to 15,000 people doing research. What we're projecting is, among these, maybe 2,500 to 4,500 PhD students. Okay, so you need to create the pipelines, right? So you got the research FTEs, people who are practicing the research, and then you have to have the pipeline. So now if we assume 50% of these folks work for the industry and the other 50% are actually not, say, government funded. So currently in the Qatar Foundation, we're projecting by 2018 to have 2,000 staff in the Research Institute with PhDs doing research. A similar number of students, okay, about 2,000 students. We know it's a very high order to get to, but I think, our motto is to aim high, and so we'll see where we get to. So I mentioned the Qatar National Research Strategy, that is a very focused strategy. We have annual meetings to revisit our national strategy to see what things needs to be tweaked. Not changed, but tweaked, okay? And how we need to accommodate certain happenings and so on. So it is really a very powerful forum. Okay, when you have a lot of people, all singing from the same sheet of music. Okay, but trying to make improvement on the plan. I mentioned the four pillars. These are the 4 pillars for the plan. And now, in terms of, at one point in time, with the Qatar National Research Strategy, we had 76 priorities. So it's like if you go to the forest, you're trying to hunt a bear, and you got arrows, you shoot them in every direction, you're not going to hunt a bear. So you need to focus where you're shooting your arrows. So Her Highness wanted us to focus on a few top grand challenges. So we're focusing on, this is the first list, but today we're focusing on 4 grand challenges. One of them, energy security. I think you all know in Qatar we are planning to host the World Cup in 2022. And clearly with the World Cup there is actually carbon credits and carbon offset credits that needs to happen. So that roughly is about 800 megawatt of solar energy. In Qatar, we produce only 7% of our food. If you increase that to 40 to 60%, we figure out we need about 1 gigawatt of electricity to desalinate water to use for food production. But the economy is growing. In Qatar, roughly, if you look at it, our electricity needs are doubling every 7 years. So we're growing at 10%. Yeah, we produce lots of natural gas and so on, but that doesn't actually provide you security. You need security, you need diversity of your resources to have security. Furthermore, climate change is a reality. So, somebody could tomorrow set taxes or some carbon taxes on the producing country, not the consuming country. So there's a lot of issues that we have to address, and we understand it. We understand also the cost of the opportunity associated with that. So energy security is a real thing for Qatar. It's not gimmicks. It's a real thing. Water security. Today in Qatar we only have storage for 2 days of water. So if something happens in the Gulf, we could actually end up in a lot of trouble. Kahrama, one of our companies, is actually building storage tanks such that we can have 7 days of reserve water. So you could see, this is a huge challenge. All of our water comes from the sea. We have people who do hobby agriculture in Qatar, and over the years, they actually depleted the northern aquifers in the country. And we have seawater penetrating these aquifers. So these are real issues. Now, if you go to California, Northern California, they start to have a drought, lack of water because of climate change. So you could see if you actually come up with energy efficient desalination technologies, you address these, you actually can have a huge market. In the morning, I mentioned, to produce oil or gas, we have to pump water in the ground. If I take seawater and I pump it in the ground, seawater got a lot of sulfate in it. What happens? My oil now has sulfate. My oil would actually have a lower price on it. Okay, so there is issues like that. Okay, so you need to really, cleaning the water and thinking about it a lot more is actually really, really important. Cybersecurity is another important thing for us in Qatar. Every country should have cybersecurity on top of their list, because we no longer just do things in the old-fashioned ways. Everything is electronic. Every one of you have maybe 2 phones or something like that. But in the morning, people talked about the smart grid. And they said, okay, it's the physical grid and we're going to lay on top of it an IT thing, right? Well, the smart grid will have phasers on it and SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition systems. You can actually attack these systems and disturb a lot of things. You can shut off things, no more wind power, no more this, no more that. So cybersecurity actually is an integral part when we think about energy and water. because you need to secure the energy infrastructure. And with no doubt, you know, we have friends and we have enemies in Qatar, so we have to watch after all of these things. So when we look at university partnerships, we first of all look at our universities. You know, the ones that I mentioned, the branch campuses, they're part of the Qatar Foundation. They're not part of another entity, they're part of the Qatar Foundation. So with them, we're trying to do joint hires of scientists. You know, we look at opportunities and so on. But for other universities outside Qatar, clearly we're interested in partnerships. But partnerships that actually, you know, you have to look at from a business point of view and a selfish point of view. Partnerships that actually buy down the technical risk for us and the scientific risk. So we work with people who are as good as us or better. We don't work with people who are not as good as us. It's really critical for us, you know, to work with the best. Because again, we want to buy down, you know, risk, learn from their mistakes, rub shoulders with the best. So to that end, we actually initiated partnerships. So for example, with the Japanese National Institute for Material Science in Tsukuba, okay, we're building a partnership. Hanyang University in South Korea, EPFL in Switzerland, okay, Drexel University, and so on and so forth. We're building these partnerships. We seek partnerships with entities that actually are really productive. Now with individuals, there is outstanding individuals that they want to do research and so on. You know, we can work with them on these QNRF things that I mentioned earlier, or through sabbatical. But also, we would like to host the students. You know, this year in the summer, we hosted 4 students from University of Strasbourg. Actually, one of them is Moroccan, one from Yemen, and I forgot the other 2. But so we're, you know, we're very open to attracting and working with young Arab upcoming scientists. I'm going to actually skip that. I mentioned the international linkages. You know, for example, we try also to work with companies and other research institutes internationally. One of the areas we work on heavily is forward osmosis. So we look to companies in the UK and work with them on that. So we're trying to make sure we're just not close-minded. We work with companies because they would like to spin out an activity in Qatar. Somebody want to build a membrane manufacturing in Qatar, and so on. This is the profile of our staffing that I mentioned earlier. And you cannot build research without having facilities. So what you see down below are our facilities. Each one of these facilities is roughly buildings, is roughly 40,000 square meters. The first interdisciplinary sciences building, it's up, it's done. Okay, you know, the first part of it will get in December and the other March, April time frame. Then the fundamental sciences building, another 40,000 square meter, dedicated to fundamental science, catalysis, you know, material science, etc. The mesoscale sciences building is dedicated to biological sciences. And the translational sciences, translation in terms of engineering, taking things from basic science, applied research to products. So big scale experiments, like maybe a PV fabrication line. And then computing. And so computing is very critical to all of the things we try to do. This is one of our buildings. Again, I mentioned the QSTB and research. They're in close proximity, as you could see here. And again, within the park, okay, we're trying again to build the new partnerships with universities, industries, and stakeholders. Again, the idea here is to focus on creating a new culture of innovation in Qatar, in the Arab world. You know, we actually have people, an inventor, take all the risk. We need to change that and have somebody else share the risk, okay, with the inventor. Okay, so this is something that needs to be changed in the Arab world. Okay, so in water security, these are our challenges. So these are the R&D challenges. Efficiency of desalination technologies, recharging the aquifer, and also water reuse. So in Qatar, we want to build a hub for energy efficient and cost effective desalination and water purification technologies. And we want to ensure sustainability of that R&D. So again, the elements I mentioned earlier, the university education, the institutes, the park, etc., okay, the companies, are all of that hub. That's what constitutes the hub. So these are the areas that we're working on. In water desalination, we emphasize forward osmosis, solar thermal desalination. And in the groundwater, we work a lot on building models for Qatar. Okay, we have a water map. I'll talk later on. We have a solar atlas, etc. So these are some of the activities. I know Ahmed is standing up because my time is about done. In the energy security, we're working on PV. Concentrated solar does not work in Qatar. Okay, you got humidity, you got particles in the air, light scattering is too much. So we're focusing on photovoltaics. But we're trying to address the pipeline for photovoltaics from the materials all the way to what, like Dr. Saeed Azi spoke about, the effect of temperature, humidity, and so on solar panels. And we do it with the companies. Kahrama is going to deploy 10 megawatt, and we're going to work with them on ways to mitigate the degradation of these systems. Dust and soiling is a big thing. So within Qatar, we have a solar test facility in the park. We have every panel you could imagine on the planet over there, and we're looking at the performance and looking at mitigation strategies, coding technologies, and etc. The smart grid is core to what we're trying to do here in Qatar. Okay. So we understand it. We have plans for micro smart grids and a national smart grid. But we want to be really a hub for photovoltaic and energy storage. In energy storage, we're focusing not on taking batteries and put them in automobiles, but taking batteries and flow batteries, using them for the grid, for the electrical grid, especially when we start to talk about off-grid. There's a lot of places on the planet, okay, they're not connected to the grid. Actually, distributed generation is a much better concept than just a big, massive grid, okay. So we're thinking in these directions. There's a lot of places on the planet need this kind of stuff. And again, these are the things we're trying to do in this grand challenge in the energy storage, grid, and solar. In solar, we're focusing really on, I'm going to say, N-type solar, quasi-mono, silicon types, and then organic and inorganic cells. Okay? In batteries, we want to go beyond lithium-ion batteries. There's a lot of local materials that we have, sodium, silicon, sulfur, and then we want to work on the flow batteries. And clearly you have to integrate things as far as the grid, okay, and ensure that you have a smart grid. We have roadmaps, and I just, again, I don't have time to go over them, but there is roadmaps for every area. And this is, for example, in the energy storage, and this is in solar. Okay, so in each area, we have a timetable, we have a program, projects, partnerships, with academia, partnerships with the industry, etc. To really, make sure we make a difference, and make a difference in a timely fashion. One of the big challenges we face in the Arab world is we cannot do research in the way it's done in the US or Europe. Why? Because, again, in Qatar, we get asked about the return on investment. Okay. So we have to be focused. We cannot be just diffused. We have to be very focused. So, if you can take anything from my talk here, we focus on energy storage, on energy security and water security. Energy security has 3 pillars: solar PV, energy security, and grid integration. Water security, 3 pillars: desalination, water reuse, and recharge. Fairly integrated. Our story is fairly clear, because you cannot achieve excellence without focus. And that's what we're trying to do there. And with that, actually, I'm done. I'm glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for this very amazing talk and this vision of Qatar. I think this is not the vision of Qatar, it should be the vision of the whole region in my opinion, because it's something that all countries in the region, in the Middle East, has to take part. So I think we open the keynote for discussion. So I start from Tunisia.
Okay, thank you very much. Just I have a question regarding the tasks or the action you have made to encourage the research and so on. So, and let me say, research by us in Arabic countries, generally the results are measured by number of paper published and number of theses, and that's all. But I think the research should have an added value in the society. And here you have shown us the budget, the number of students of research, PhD and so on. But the most important thing, how to make a relationship between research and industry. How to let the industrial part engage in this research. And what is the synergy, because unfortunately by us in Arabic country, research at university and industrial operation are totally isolated. So sometimes you find many problems in industrial. In the other corner you find research and professor at university are able to solve this problem and they may have the solution.
So first of all, thank you. This is a great question. I think, you know, we always should look around for models and examples, successful examples. One successful example is the South Korea example. South Korea, when they conceive a project, they will actually have people from the universities teamed with people from the industry. So the role of the universities, you know, to deal with certain technical challenges. Then when you reach to a certain stage in your work, there is a handoff strategy and it goes to the industry people. So there is an integration that they have. So to ensure that the research gets requirements from the industry, but the industry applies a pull on the activity. And this has actually been very successful in South Korea. There's a lot of examples. Another example is the cooperative research and development agreements that actually happen in the US. Okay, so again, you know, you conceive a project together, you know, people who are doing research and people who are doing, you know, the industry based on industrial needs. In Qatar, we're actually trying to do a combination of both of these. Okay? And so we have entities like QSTP and QSTech, Qatar Solar Technologies. Okay? With Qatar Solar Technologies today, we're working with them on a new technology to produce polycrystalline silicon at roughly $8.50 per kilogram. Okay. Now, if you look at the cost of operations today, it's like a 21, 22, the best, okay, dollars per kilogram. So now, it's an industrial need because if you cannot produce it at cheaper prices, you're not going to be able to compete with China, right? So there is a lot of commercial and profit-driven goals that we can work with them to translate them into actual projects and so on. And that's what we're doing with them. Now, these projects take different spins. So the proof of concept we've done with them. Now there's another stage, okay, and then you have to go to a pilot scale level. Pilot scale level will cost $9 million US. So QSTech is going to pay for that. So again, you know, in certain environments, you can see how this stuff is working. But I believe it's, you know, in our NPRP proposals, we ask both universities and industry to apply together. So I think it's going to take more proactive roles, you know, to do it in, you know, outside certain very structured activities and so on. That's the reason I mentioned we're focused, because in solar and water, we know the entities that we need to work with and so on. That enables us to create that, you know, alignment. But if we're diffused, we cannot create the alignment.
Well, my name is Tiarno Sal. I am from Senegal, but I'm doing all my study here in Morocco. I want to know why all your activity, the activity of the Qatar Foundation is focusing only on the Arab world.
On what?
On the Arab world. Why only on the Arab world?
Arab world, not Africa maybe or some other.
Okay, well, first of all, we're a very integral part of the Arab world. Okay, second, okay, we want to create sustainability, which means that, you know, to sustain an activity, you want people who actually will come and live in Qatar. We're not really trying to export, you know, our activities elsewhere. So culturally, you know, people from the Arab world, you know, like to come to Qatar. So, but we're open to other entities, you know, like for example, our staff in the Qatar Foundation, there is a sizable portion come from the US, come from Europe, come from Asia, okay? So we actually try to attract the best. But when we look for the best, we also look for people from the Arab world, okay? And they happen to be the best, okay, in their areas, okay? So we do both, okay? But yeah, we do targeted hires of people from an Arabic origin. And it's perfectly fine for sustainability. You know, you have to integrate and keep things moving, you know, forward. But we're open, you know, when it comes to, you know, attracting people the best. We attract, actually, many of my colleagues from the United States, they're not Arabs, okay? And they're actually, you know, coming to work with us at the Qatar Foundation. They're, you know, top in their fields, we bring them. But we focus on Arab youngsters because in the Arab world, okay, we have actually, you know, quite a bit of unemployment, okay, and we need to create, you know, the right environment, okay, for the youngsters in the Arab world. I think every country on the planet tries to create jobs and so on for their folks. So what we're doing is consistent with the vision of the country.
Yeah, just Hashmi Sadiq from University International of Rabat. Your ideas are clear, you are focused, you have the fund, and you have the energy. I think your project will be successful. Now, how to make this project as a nucleus that will grow within Arab world? That's the first good question. Should I say the second or later one? Okay.
Go ahead.
The second one is that when you make these ideas that you will, or you have an outcome of research, you have to translate that to a practical product that will benefit the society. Now, how to make the industrial part, to make the manufacturing inside the Arab world, that making added value to the resources that we have in the Arab world, not only in Qatar, not to be isolated. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So first of all, on the first question, clearly, you know, we're very open to sharing, you know, our experience and what's happening with other countries in the region. Second, you know, many countries in the region suffer from the same kind of issues we suffer from. So, you know, when we talk about solar, dust, humidity, it's the same challenges. Okay, so once we are actually making progress ourselves and standing on our own feet, then we can actually have an opportunity to dialogue and discuss and work with the other people in the region. Now, we're trying to do these exchange programs and partnerships with the universities. So we can actually build partnerships with universities in the region here, say in Morocco or Tunisia or elsewhere, right? And that actually will help in creating that dialogue, okay, between us. There's a variety of ways, Al-Hashmi, to do it. I mentioned the students, okay? You know, the student body can come from everywhere, right? And so again, that would be a bridge for that. It takes time, you know, to trying to share, you know, that kind of concept, because not everybody, you know, is aligned and sees eye to eye on it. Okay, so it'll take time.
So the last question. Brian Benamou from Qatar University of Marrakesh. Thank you very much for your presentation. I learned a lot of things, and a lot of false ideas are coming from my mind. If I'm saying the Qatar Foundation was founded more than 10 years ago.
1995.
Okay. So you talked about the strategy. You have to build the ecosystem, the research ecosystem, and for sure there is a concrete realization. You talk about the research fund, the national fund. For sure there is a call for proposal. There was 7 call.
CRP 8.
Okay.
some words about the concretization of this program and the concrete actions? Thank you.
Okay, actually, this is kind of help me addressing your question, but go back to his question. Okay, so if you look at NPRP 7 and before, okay, you know, a substantial amount of resources go to scientists in the United States, scientists in Europe, and actually in Asia. There is a few countries in Africa that actually were able to be successful, because I mentioned it's competitive. Okay. You know, the partnerships that I mentioned earlier we built, okay, all of them are international partnerships. Then, you know, when we talk about off-the-grid activities and so on, successes, once we're successful, where are you going to deploy them? You're going to deploy them in, you know, most likely places in Africa, places actually in Qatar itself, because there is in the north of Qatar isolated places. Now, in PRP 8, okay, the letters of intent were actually due on the 14th of October. Okay. So if you that did not submit a letter of intent, then you don't have an opportunity to submit a proposal. You have to wait to NPRP cycle 9. Okay. But you know, we have a project ourselves. We propose certain things. Okay. What we could do is actually share these through the organizers here. Okay, and the organizers can forward them to others. And if somebody has an idea that and want to contribute, we can have a dialogue with them on activities that we already submitted. Okay, and we can include them in these activities if they can make a measurable contribution. So that's something we could do, especially the proposals that we have the lead PI on. If you have the lead PI, then you can make the adjustments. So because, you know, we're very truthful about what we're trying to do. There is no gimmicks, okay, and, you know, we would like to have others be involved with us, okay, so we'll do that. We'll forward this list to Ahmed and the others, and they will take care of it from there.
So, thank you very much. I think the message is clear. Qatar Foundation is very generous, but we need excellence. That's it.